Okay, officially, hello everyone, bonjour tout le monde. Welcome to Concordia University's Fourth Space. Thank you so much for joining us for Moving the Landscape to Find Ground. I will be passing it over for introductory remarks and an introduction of today's guest in just a second. But first, just to help situate you, we are streaming to YouTube live from Fourth Space, which is located on unceded indigenous lands here in Jage, Montreal. And as caretakers for the lands and waters that we are meeting on today, we'd like to extend our gratitude to the Kanien'kehá:ka Nation for their teachings about the earth and our relations. At Fourth Space, if you're new to the space, we'll just let you know that we work with our university community to mobilize and exchange knowledge by co-creating daily activities, conversations, and events such as this one that basically invite Concordia faculty, students, and staff together with external community members, partners, and audiences such as yourselves here today to examine research questions and projects in development here across the university. So very warm welcome to those of you in the space. I will invite you to make yourselves comfortable. Feel free to turn your chair around to look at the big screen or the smaller screen that's at the front there for you. And if you're joining us via Zoom, maybe just a quick point of engagement. We will have time for a question period. So if you have any reflections, questions, or comments, we do invite you to pop in. It is a meeting, so you're more than welcome to turn on your camera, raise a hand, and jump in that way. Otherwise, the chat is, of course, activated. And if you're in the space and you'd have something to contribute, just please raise a hand as well, and we'll get a microphone to you so that folks on Zoom can hear you. Okay, that's enough out of me. I'll be passing it over to Hannah Klaus. Welcome, Hannah.
Welcome to you all. My name is Hannah Klaus. I'm a Kanien'kehá:ka and English visual artist, as well as professor of frameworks and interventions in Indigenous art practices. And the hat I'm wearing today, right now, is as co-director of the Post-Image Research Cluster. Welcome to Post-Image's first artist presentation of 2023 in the Moving the Landscape to Find Ground speaker series. It's our pleasure to have Horizon postdoctoral fellow Rehab Nazzal with us today to speak about her practice. Rehab Nazzal is a Palestinian-born multidisciplinary artist living in Toronto and Montreal. Her work deals with the effects of settler-colonial violence on the bodies and minds of colonized peoples, on the land, and on other non-human life. Nazzal's video, photography, and sound works have been exhibited in solo and group exhibitions across Canada and internationally. She was an assistant professor at Dar Al-Kalima University in Bethlehem and has taught at Simon Fraser University, Western University, and Ottawa School of Art. She's the recipient of several awards, including the Social Justice Award from Ryerson University and the Edmund and Isobel Ryan Visual Arts Award in Photography from the University of Ottawa. Moving the Landscape to Find Ground is built from a shared ambition to break open lens-based practices via the interrogation of the colonial prism through which photography exists. We're inviting conversation among all communities impacted by the colonial gaze. If you wish to see the schedule for the rest of the series, please visit the programming section of our website and sign up to our newsletter. Now I'll go to our collaborators, the Indigenous Futures Research Center, the Feminist Media Studio, the Black Perspectives Office, and Daphne Arts Center. And as well, we thank the support, we thank Milieu, Fourth Space, the Faculty of Fine Arts, the Office of the Vice President, Research and Graduate Studies, and the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council of Canada for their support. Yanko.
Thank you very much, Hannah. And thank you for being here, everyone, whether in person or online. As an indigenous Palestinian woman forcefully exiled in this country, I would like to start by acknowledging that I am living and working on the indigenous territories of the Kanien'kehá:ka Nation on the city of Jahjage. Today, it's It's not showing. What is going on? I did this. What is wrong? Yes. Yes, yes, yes. No, no. Okay. So today I'll present an overview of my recent or most recent work, also my current research projects. I'll be talking briefly about a project titled Walking Under Occupation, another Bodies in Motion, Driving in Palestine, We the Wild Plants and Fruit Trees, Sonic Torture, Vibration, Sensing War in Gaza, and Palestinian Women in Early Photography in Palestine, which is an archival research within post-image. Before I begin, just a quick idea about my work. It's research-based, informed by my lived experience, also by field work, archival and cultural material, and community engagement. And it examines, as Hannah mentioned, the effect of settler-colonial violence on the bodies of colonized people on the land, on non-human life in colonized territories. I use photography, video, sound, and drawing, installation as well in my work. Also, I employ a variety of visual and sonic strategies that range between experimental and documentary. In general, my work challenges Western representation of the indigenous Palestinian people and their struggle for freedom and justice. Walking Under Occupation, this is a project that began in 2005. And it really examines the act of walking as an embodied human experience, as a means of obtaining knowledge that we cannot obtain in any other ways, connecting us with the land, connecting with each other as well, and with the natural world. Walking involves all senses. It affects the body at many levels. It involves sensing, seeing, feeling, as well as thinking. Walking as a form of defiance, and that's exactly what I do, defiance, protest, and a means of asserting agency, challenging the occupiers and the colonizers. Now, this project began, as I said, in 2005, when I was allowed by the Israeli occupation forces to return to my country after 25 years of being denied the right to go. The shock that I experienced prompted me to begin walking from 2005. Whenever I visit, whenever I go to work there, I walk in any city, any village, any street, through checkpoints, by the wall, in any place. And many works, actually many projects, emerged from this practice. Briefly, this is through Hawara checkpoint. This was exhibited in 2007. Actually, the title of that project was Walking Under Occupation. It was exhibited in Ottawa. It was the shock of this notorious checkpoint, Hawara, at the southern entrance of Nablus. The same checkpoint. This is from Walking Downtown Al-Khalil, 2010. A soldier and a toy, a boy and a gun. Again, downtown Al-Khalil. Downtown East Jerusalem in 2008, could see the bread and the intimacy in the back and the soldier in the front. Downtown Bethlehem area, Al-Khadr, where you see levels of the apartheid wall. Al-Hamra military checkpoint in 2010. Any person wants to cross from West Bank to West Bank, basically to Jericho from Nablus or Jenin, must cross through Al-Hamra checkpoint. To the right, Hawara checkpoint, 2009. And another notorious checkpoint that divides the Palestinians in the West Bank from Jerusalem, let's say East Jerusalem. This is Kalandia. Okay, so I'll move on. That was really, and just quick overview about that project. Move on to Bodies in Motion. This is an installation, is going to be next year installed in Vancouver, but also it was part of an exhibition titled Choreographies of Resistance. Consists of video as well as 7 life-size prints. It conveys the collective nature of protests and the ways in which individual bodies can form a unified and power force that challenges oppressive systems and mighty military powers. These are the life-size prints. It's basically silhouettes of photographs that I captured in Bethlehem during the 2015-2016 Intifada. I was conducting a research in Palestine, and I was immersed in the everyday protest in the city of Bethlehem. Many people can remember the myth of David and Goliath, for example, in this one, but it's reversed in this case. Mighty military power with the stones. That's how it looks like from Axenu Set gallery in Gatineau. It was exhibited also in addition to Western University Macintosh Gallery. Bodies in Motion, the other component of this exhibition, I'll show you 50 seconds. I'll move on to another project, photography series, 12 of these, 48 by 34 inches each, mounted on metal die bond. This installation view from Simon Fraser University last year, they were exhibited. Briefly, they are abstraction of visibility and invisibility within the context of settler-colonial violence, the whole series concerns with the use of tear gas by settler-colonial and oppressive powers. And probably you all are aware of the massive use of tear gas, which is prohibited, by the way, internationally, by international law, it's prohibited. It's a poisonous gas. During the Intifada that I lived in Palestine, 2015-16, our throat used to taste tear gas. Our clothes used to smell tear gas. It is poisonous, it's dangerous, it's under-researched, which is questionable. Why scholars, researchers don't research this significant, important issue, because we see it here in Canada, the pipeline sites in the US, everywhere, social issues present, there is a use of tear gas. I shot this series through a tear gas mask, otherwise I wouldn't be able to. So it's basically represents the resilience of protesters. Like, look at these protesters in the midst, sitting there, being bombed. And the methods of using tear gas, actually, there are several methods. Either soldiers will throw it by hand or will shoot it by a rifle, or the Americans' combined system created what's called venom, which is a launcher that either soldiers hold it by hand or mount it on top of a military vehicle, and they rain basically hundreds of tear gas canisters on protesters, on homes, on the land, on the nature. Even here, the poor dog got lost in the middle of the smoke of the tear gas. You could see the scale of it within the city. Here, protesters in the protest street. There's a woman as well. Okay, so I'll move on to another from the tear gas, or what's called less lethal. They call it less lethal weapons, crowd control weapons. I'll move to driving in Palestine. Basically, these last 2 years, I've been working on these projects, from this one and the ones coming soon. This is a photography book. It's forthcoming from Fernwood Publishing in April 2023, soon. You can log online into Fernwood and you can actually purchase the book earlier, order it. There is also another component of this project, which is an exhibition here in Montreal in the fall of 2023 at the My Center. So what is driving in Palestine? What is this project? It's about restrictions, obstructions of movement that Palestinians encounter in Palestine. It's about the architecture of apartheid, the architecture of surveillance that Palestinians encounter around the hour in the streets, particularly where they move from one place to another. I lived in Palestine for 3 years. I was born in Palestine, as I mentioned at the beginning. And I lived my teenage years there. I encountered the Israeli brutal military incursion into the West Bank as a child, and the continuous raid of our house. When I got a scholarship from Damascus University after high school, and I finished my studies, I was not allowed to return, as I said, for 25 years. But in 2015, I went to teach at Dar Al-Kalima University and conduct a research that was funded by SHIRK, by the way. And I was shot by an Israeli sniper during that research, and none of the universities here, my university even, they did not speak at all about what happened. It's reversed, actually. I was attacked, the university was attacked. So during these 3 years I spent teaching there, I was photographing from moving cars, vehicles, while I'm sharing ride with passengers. Especially when I drive from Bethlehem, where I used to work, to my family's house in Jenin in the north. Normally should take less than 2 hours. The ride sometimes takes 4 or 5 hours because we have to cross many checkpoints and encounter many delays, or even those ambush checkpoints, flying checkpoints they're called, or closure, or any of these incidents. So I intensified taking photographs on the road. But since my first return in 2005, with the shock of what I'm seeing, all these new structures in our land, including the colonies, the hilltops being raised and segregated Jewish-only colonies being built there. So I reached the point to create this book, photography book, from these photographs that were taken during the past 10 years. And the book includes also 7 essays by amazing scholars and artists, Canadians, Palestinians as well. And the book is in Arabic and English. Yes. It's called Al-Taharruk fi Palestine. This photograph you would see probably on the cover page of the book. That's between the the town of Halhul and the city of Al-Khalil or Hebron in the midst. Now, the driving, unlike walking, by the way, it's a whole different experience than walking. Driving, at least for me, like researching this subject, the fragmentation, the segregation, the control, the violence, and the destruction of the landscape, all of it manifests through the experience of looking from a moving vehicle. This photograph in Bethlehem, in the town of Beit Jala, you would think this is a stadium, right? That's the first impression people get. But this is an only Israeli road. Palestinians cannot ride on it. And this is a section of Israel's apartheid wall that cuts through the town of Beit Jala. Now, the height of this wall, it has 2 layers, if you notice. It's about 16-meter high, the 2 layers. It's to prevent stone throwing on the street of the only Israelis road. This image, and I often pass by this road in my way between Ramallah and Bethlehem. Every time I look at the components of this, the stairs and the wall and the word Palestine and nothing else. And I think it resembles to a degree what people here don't see anything, because we have such a complicit media, such a complicit political system, implicated actually in the suffering and the struggle of the Palestinians. So I said that among the manifestation is the dividing the Palestinian communities. If you look at here, this is like a neighborhood of Jerusalem, East Jerusalem. In both sides are Palestinian communities. People used to cross the street to go to their school or the clinic, or now they have to go 2, 3, 4 hours, you never know how long, to reach just across the street, basically. dividing Palestine into 1948, 1967, West Bank, Gaza, East Jerusalem, within West Bank itself, Area A, Area B, Area C. Now, in this photograph, behind the checkpoint is 1948. We crossed to Nazareth, for example. From this side, Jenin, in the 1967. The Palestinians in Jenin, they cannot visit Nazareth or other areas, Akka, Yafa, or Palestinian cities within 48. This checkpoint functions basically to allow Palestinian workers who work in Israel, the most terrible sections, actually, sectors in the economy, constructions with the minimum rights. So it's basically for them to cross every day at 2, 3 a.m. Among these that inflict fears on the road, the flying checkpoints, which you don't know when you can encounter a flying checkpoint like this one. They search cars, they arrest people. These photographs from within the cars while we're riding, and in the cars, in the bus, in the service, there is a life, there is a social life. People talk and share stories. And when we come across the checkpoint, we all just sit straight and become silent. The gear, one of the writers, Ahlam Bisharat, she's a poet from Ramallah. She wrote about this, called it the protection gear that Palestinians hold in their cars when they cross these obstacles. This was a bit risky. I didn't want to jeopardize the people with me. And yes, I did not take many photographs I wanted because it's risky. I managed to capture this on a flying checkpoint, how they stopped the car and got that young man, blindfolding him and arresting him. This is just after a permanent checkpoint, immediately. Another manifestation, the segregation, the signs, the apartheid signs that we witnessed in South Africa. Here, there are no signs, but there are segregation in this country, of course. The land itself under surveillance. Palestinians, when they use it, they're under surveillance. This is the same watchtower. The segregated colonies for Jewish only. These colonies built illegally on a stolen Palestinian land in the 1967 territories, which is according to international law, it's an occupied land. This is Nabi Saleh land. Many of you know Ahad Tamimi, the young woman who slapped a soldier on the face and was arrested 16 months for that slap. This is her land, her family's land, their land. They've been protesting for the past 15 years every week to protect further annexation of their land and water resources. How these start, also, you could see in 2019, I witnessed how a colony started, and hopefully it won't continue, it won't succeed, because this is the last remaining land of Bethlehem that people can walk freely. A couple of settlers with rifles arrived to this land and began this structure. And here, as you see, the Israeli army demolished the house and the restaurant of Kaisiye family. I witnessed both in 2019. Bethlehem area again, this is Walaji village where Israel encroachment on the land and stealing land, building this fence now. You could tell the difference in the landscape and the changes that are taking place. To the right, you see the Jewish National Fund trees. Oops. The trees are killing the native plants and nature. To the left is still the Palestinian trees and nature. And that takes me to, oh, by the way, this is a fence, not the apartheid wall. This is, because our media even called it a barrier or a fence. This is a fence and a land theft fence. This takes me to We the Wild Plants and Fruit Trees. It's now on this exhibition as part of the Willful Plot at the Balkan Gallery in UBC, Vancouver. It consists of 60 photographs, variety of size, and the installation, if you could see, it's organic like the plants themselves, did not follow any conventional rule in exhibiting them. I am giving agency to the plants and trees in colonized territories. Basically, that's the idea behind the whole project. Plants and trees that are in this exhibition are native to the Palestinian depopulated village of Lifta at the outskirts of Jerusalem, and the destroyed Palestinian villages of Amwas, Beit Nuba, and Yalo that were demolished in 1967 during the occupation. And over their ruins, Canada Park was established with Canadian money. These are from Lifta. The population of Lifta were expelled. If you watched on Netflix the film Farha, actually, I think it took place there in Lifta. The survivor who told her story, it is from this village. So the inhabitants of this village, they're still alive, great number of them in refugee camps and in the West Bank, but they cannot return back to their houses. The trees they planted, like this is almond tree. The trees are taking over the houses. And the Israeli, the irony, I've been going to that site the past few years, and you could see here 2017, 2020. In 2017, a nature reserve, it's in the process of announcing it as nature reserve. And they're preventing picking wild plants, spice, trees. And for Palestinians or any indigenous communities on this globe, actually, plants are a source of food, a source of spiritual nourishment and of medicine. And the same as for Palestinians. You don't pick these wild plants, they die. But they don't know that, the settlers. They don't. In 2020, if you look at the text in here, in English, the village itself, it's being biblified from the Bible. It's being related to as a biblical site, archaeological site, and it has a cemetery that belongs to an Arab village that once stood here. That's the only mention. But the residents of the houses, those who built these houses, planted these trees, are still alive here. This is an image of the whole installation of the photographs. And could you please, guys, play the video? Thank you. just 2 minutes from the video we're going to watch, which is part of the exhibition.
زرتها بشكل يعني غير رسمي، لأنه أي واحد منا هون عشان يدخل مناطق 48 بده تصريح، ما كان عم صح لي تصريح.
وميزت بيتكم؟
ميزته يعني بعد صعوبة ميزته. تميز البيت يعني إما بدك يعني انطلاقا من شجرة معينة أو سلسلة أو مكان مميز. أذكر كان في يعني مغارة مجاورة للبيت وفي عدد من شجرات الصنوبر بالضبط، يعني كان بإمكاني أحدد. بعد جهد غير قليل تمكنت من تمييز البيت. عاملين زي مقاعد خشبية أشبه بالبنس هناك تحت الغاية، فكان في شجرة يعني كبيرة كنا دائما نجلس تحتها. رحت يعني 3-4 مرات، ما في تغدينا هناك تحت الشجر، يعني أماكن يعني مرتبطة بطفولتي، يعني بعرف الأرض وشجر معين الأخير لا زال موجود. ربما لاحظت المقبرة موجودة وفي بعض الأماكن الدينية لا زالوا موجودين، وبقايا يعني حدود لبعض البيوت، سلسلة مغارة شجرة معينة هي فقط التي تميز القرية بعد هدمها. نقطة تجمع المياه والبير إذا شفتيه، يعني يوميا كنت أروح عنده. ورحت وزرت يعني الأراضي اللي لنا هناك، يعني في جبل ويعني قطع أراضي وأحراش إلى آخره، يعني مرتبطة بالطفولة. زرتها شيء 4-5 مرات أنا يعني.
This is Canada Park, and I am leaving it for a week open online. If you want to continue, it's 13 minutes. You can't watch it now. I made this after my visit to that site, being here in Canada, then realizing there is a site called Canada Park. I was outraged of what I witnessed there. In my way back to Ramallah, I met with a friend who appears in here, a friend to my family, and I told him I was in Canada Park. He said, I am from Amwas. I didn't know that. So I have a handheld camera with me, and I recorded. I wanted to hear from him the first time what he tells me. I recorded that. Next year, in my visit to Palestine, I want to make an interview with him with details, but he had cancer and he passed. So all I have is this, and I made this in dedication for him, the whole video, really. Of course, it incorporated like archival material, testimonies, including a testimony from a Palestinian who's here, Dr. Ziada in Halifax, I think. He also witnessed and lived the war crime. That's the name of it. It is war crime to expel 10,000 Palestinians from their homes and villages. then destroyed their home, and then create a recreational park that is segregated actually just for Israelis. Even Palestinians cannot reach it. And the donations come from Canada, and the names are inscribed on the stones that were taken from the demolished homes. You could see, if you're interested, just log on Vimeo and you see it. The next project I'm working on is sonic torture. This is just at the beginning of being completed because it's an installation, so one component is finished. Sonic torture, it's based on interviews with Palestinian prisoners who experienced torture with sound, torture with music, and with silence. Silence by being put for a few days in a dark space, small space, insulated, sound insulated, or 20, 23 hours sometimes with music, loud music, and with sound of torture, either recorded or actual. So I interviewed 7 people during the lockdown at the beginning of the pandemic. I was stuck in Ramallah and wasn't teaching, so I met, including a student from Bir Zayt, a professor in Bir Zayt, and one of the prisoners spent 22 years in prison. He was 17. Currently, he's a writer. And another one who we couldn't complete the interview because he was arrested, Salah Hammouri, who was deported from his city, from Jerusalem. Then last December, he was deported from the country to France. These are some of, like I will include in the exhibition, the installation, their testimonies or parts of the interviews. Why can't we see? Again, yeah, I know. Each time we'll have this, right? Share the screen. So I was, yes. Thank you. This is 8 minutes, but I just shared a small fraction from the work. The next project before the last is vibration sensing war in Gaza. It's a short film about Palestinian deaf children in Gaza and how they survive the frequent genocidal attacks, military attacks on the Strip. It came about, the idea of this film, when I visited Gaza in 2021 following the attack, to help with, to help the children, like using art through art therapy. And I worked with 51 children at the time. But what really remained with me for a year is the deaf children. So they don't hear. They see from faces of the others, they see the fear. So I wanted to get deep inside them and see how they survive. And that's how this film, it's still at the beginning. I'll share a couple of minutes, still in the post-production. Okay, and this is the fun part, the last project. This is my research at the post image, which I juggled between this research and the other two projects. I am drowning in resources, I would say, drowning. So early photography in Palestine. How, well, I am really convinced that photography is a global phenomenon. and a medium of representation. And it's enough to keep saying Western invention and non-invention, honestly, like anything else, like algebra or the zero was invented by the Arabs. So we keep saying it every time we use algebra. Decolonization and indigenizing histories of photography. This is an ongoing process. It began, for sure, but we still have a long way ahead of us. And unlearning, doing lots of unlearning, especially the Western framework and the aesthetics. Like we all learn Susan Sontag and Roland Barthes and many theorists, and we just looked at photography from this narrow framework without thinking of the indigenous framework. And you hear me? Hello? Yeah. The necessity to establish a global indigenous framework that really is generated from within, not imposed by any. And this is not something that can be created really instantly. It's the indigenous communities themselves. What is photography for them? What does it mean for them? And we should distinguish also this matter from the archive. The archive which we should reclaim from the great number of museums and institutions where it's housed, our indigenous globally, not just us. So when I began this research, these are just the covers of some of the books I found. And it is becoming more clear, my research, when I connect photography with Orientalism and settler colonialism. Photography and Orientalism, it's being examined by a great number of scholars, indigenous scholars globally. But settler colonialism, it's really very much connected, and I will speak about Palestine, how it's connected. So photography continued the earlier Orientalist projects. It's not that it stopped. It's moved from the art, imitated exactly what's in the art, the Orientalist images and depiction of women, of the land, of the exotic, of the inferior, of the backward, into photography, continued. The institutions continued enforcing and perpetuating conventions of these labels of the Orient or the other, not just the Orient. Museums and academia also provided the platform of creation and displaying. European imperial powers and colonial powers, institutions, states, they funded and sent actually photographers to work. And here I'm talking about Palestine in particular. And the representation of Palestine began as a timeless and biblical space. I mean, we just saw how the village of Lifta was still alive. It's biblical now. The whole research began with this book for me. It's a present from my brother from Harvard University book sale in the library. He sent me this book. It's by a member of the French Academy. It's Henry Bordeaux, who is a right-wing, conservative, horrible. Shouldn't say that, but that's the truth. So what's in the book? It's his account of his visit to Palestine in 1926. So after 2 years, he published his narrative of the trip. but it has 167 photographs and 10 watercolors. The photographs he mentioned in the book, it's mentioned by the two gentlemen, Fred Thévaux, Geneva, Garo Gessian, Beirut. That's it. And to find any information at the beginning about who are these and which photograph were taken by who, nothing. But later on, I'll show you what transpired. Yeah, so really the text, it's his typical Orientalist travel narrative who accompanied image to support his narrative, basically, or legitimize it. These are the watercolors that are beautiful, actually. But these two images, every photographer captured these, who photographed Palestine. The Dome of the Rock, the Mosque of Omar, the Al-Aqsa Mosque, many names given to it, but this exquisite structure that was built in the 6th century by the Muslims in Jerusalem, and the Damascus Gate as well. So Garo Gessian, the name, I've managed to find Abraham Garo Gessian, who is Palestinian Lebanese, and actually still, I think his grandson now has a photography studio in East Jerusalem, still, Garo. So Abraham Garo Gessian, he acquired the studio of Felix Pamphis. Felix Pamphis is the first commercial photographer to produce images of Palestine. And he was part, of course, of the French expedition in Lebanon. He produced 5 volumes of photographs, souvenirs of the Orient for the Paris World Fair. Now, if you log online, Israelis are selling these, actually, selling these as volumes or as images. It's so shocking what I am discovering through this research. So Abraham, when Felix Pamphis opened a studio in Beirut and opened another one in Jerusalem, then went back to France because it's now a capitalist enterprise. It's a profit-making business, basically. His wife and son continued to direct his studio in Beirut, but then his son went to the hotel business, and Abraham Garo Gessian, he bought the business. At the time, buying business means everything in it. So he bought everything. And that's why Henry Bordeaux mentioned Garo Gessian, because these images, although not identified which image by who. Now, the other gentleman Thévaux, Fred, he called it in the book, Fred Thévaux is from Lausanne, a Swiss citizen, but there were 2 brothers who visited Palestine 1888 and 1891, and they produced hundreds of photographs that were used to supplement texts by religious writers, including Henry Bordeaux. I am sure we cannot go over all this in the time we have, but these are just a quick, really, overview of the photography activities in Palestine, and which started just the next year of the invention of photography. The list is very long, but in the 1900s, a photography department was established in Jerusalem by the American colony Some of you might wonder, American colony, because I was also shocked to discover that a group of religious Americans and Swedish Americans from Chicago came to Palestine and established the American colony in Jerusalem. There's another colony, German colony in Haifa. So the photography department was established in 1900, and they have plenty of photographs. So the very narrow question in my research, how Palestinian women were represented in early Western photography. If I start with this Henry Bordeaux, I'll find here, read the quote. It's the manner of dressing the head that seems comic to Western eyes. Another shorter quote from Henry Bordeaux. We go through Haifa, in which we recognize a population of Christians, for the women go about with unveiled faces. They gain nothing by this absence of the mysterious. 100 years between then and now. Look at how we look at the veiled women between unveiled and veiled, and the man's gaze, like the mystery. What? It's sick, really. Or here, over there is the field in which angels announce the birth of the Son of God, the shepherds, and there, the cornfield in which Boaz met Ruth. I see them here in my mind's eye. The scene is the same as it was then. Palestine, according to him, is frozen on time for 3,000 years, well, 2,000 to say, since Jesus. This image, by the way, and I grew up in Palestine, every farmer in any farmland, you will find this image in the 50s, in the 60s, in the 70s. That's normal image. And this is not corn, this is wheat. It's a wheat field. And we come to the exotic again. All these photographs from the book, by the way. Natives grinding corn, all right? The image, I found it in the Library of Congress. This is the original image, and it is by Bonfils. Notice how the background is removed. And photographers or photography professors among you know that when digital photography came, we were talking about manipulation of the image and changing the image, but this is in the early 20s. What is with corn? The question is raised because it's familiar for us. Native women in the 1900s here in Turtle Island, many you can find in the Library of Congress or many other resources. So what is it with these photographers, these Western eyes of targeting women, grinding corn or whatever it is? Another image to the left from the book, but the original, it's on the right. Now, there are many revelations. I have to make sure, though, that my sources are authentic about hiring women to pose for Bonfils as Bedouins. There is a woman that I could recognize. It is in this photograph and here as well. So the background is staged. It's a poster of these trees. And the rocks are artificial, not real rocks. And the women are instructed to look, to gaze this way. That submissive nature of women, or what they wanted to be as well. Every photographer in Palestine in the 1900 photographed this site in Nazareth, the fountain of the Lady Mary, or Ain Sitti Maryam in Arabic. Supplies the whole town with water. All around it are to be seen the women in their long robes floating in the wind, the Virgin in her girlhood, and when she grew up, used to come here as others came. She also used to carry her pitcher of cold water. This is Henry Borden. Yeah. So here's another photograph by the American colony photographers. Yes. Same space. So representation of Palestinian women in early photography. If we look at the photograph on the right and the one on the left, the exotic, beautiful woman on the left, Bedouin woman, and on the right, ordinary two working woman. But even the photograph, the focus on the city, on the background. So they're just not even the full frame as women, because nothing exotic about them being normal working women. That's my interpretation. And for the pleasure and entertainment of the American public, we have here the stereoscope by two companies that used to photograph Palestinian women to show them to the American public, the Bedouin as well. Palestinian indigenous photography. I mean, I wish I can talk longer, but I don't want to. So in 10 minutes maximum, I'll finish. Palestinian indigenous photography. The first photography school in Jerusalem in 1860 was established. I think one of the first in the world, actually, by Yisai Garabedian, who was Armenian Patriarch of Jerusalem. And then his students took the craft and became open studios. My aunt, actually, I have her photograph to restore it from 1930s, was in with one of these photographers taken. So there is a personal connection even to researching this subject. Among these photographers, Karima Aboud. Karima Aboud, the first Palestinian woman, or perhaps Arab woman, photographer as a professional. She worked in Bethlehem, Nazareth, and Haifa. That's her. Was active between 1914 and 1940 when she died after sickness. Her work was buried since the Nakba. And not just her work, but many photographers' work. Hanna Safia, for example. Hanna Safia, and correct me, Nairuz, Hanna Safia, his work was hidden on a wall, inside a wall in Jerusalem before he fled, escaped Jerusalem during the Nakba, during the massacre. So we don't know what happened with Karima Aboud. It just, at the beginning of the 20th century, an Israeli collector, that's what he's called, surfaced with him some of her albums. And Palestinian researchers, Dr. Mitri Rahib, Ahmed Mirouat, they were also researching, because she is not like mysterious, because this is a Palestinian newspaper, Al-Carmel, and she has ads on it. To the right, you see the English translation of her ad. How these photographs reached this Israeli collector, where the rest of her work, it remains, along with other questions about the whole Palestinian archive during the Nakba, the Palestinian archive from 1982 invasion of Lebanon the archive in the Israeli Haganah and security services that is locked. I would really place the work of Karima Aboud within that. So how is her lens is different than the others? That's during the same period where Henry Bordeaux was publishing the photographs that we saw in the book. No staging, it's humanizing of the people, it's just regular people. No artificial staging. Okay, I will conclude with this, which was released yesterday. This is reflections on freedom movement. It's a group of artists that I worked with the past 4 months after I was invited by the Black Flash magazine, and it was released their project. The discussion with these artists led to them each creating a project. I really advise you to visit the website and see their amazing works. These are the artists, and their work is impressive. The whole topic was freedom of movement, one of them from Gaza, one from Jerusalem. We all learned actually from the different experiences of the same Palestinians, but different obstructions they face in each place. With this, I conclude and give time for questions and for any comments. Thank you.
We do have some questions in the chat on Zoom. I'm going to pop them up on the screen here for you, okay?
Okay, would you like me to read this out for you?
A question?
There is a comment in the chat. Yeah, maybe a question.
We will leave for the question probably first. Yeah, but sure, I mean, okay,
Sorry,
I can read it. By Jess? Jess?
Yes.
Okay.
Jess, if you wanted to read your own question, you're more than welcome to. Otherwise, one of us can read it out for you, as you wish.
I don't mind reading it, being partially deaf myself. Sometimes it's easy to type out first. Thank you again for everything you shared. Okay, so I do have one question about your project working with deaf children in Palestine and the media/forum choices. I noticed that the contrast of captioning only as translation to non-deaf people in captions rather than deaf-to-deaf translation live, which is like video sign language. Since text is for many folks born deaf, it's like often a second language or a third language, as well as the choice to not do any subtitles for sound and not translate that in the same kind of captioned way, despite it being a story of deaf children in Palestine. Made me wonder and want to ask you questions about music deafness as an artistic element, as opposed to like, was it used as an artistic element to to kind of interrogate narratives of like war, or I guess I feel a little confused as to who the audience is with respect to the way video work, not having seen the whole film, but just the clip that you showed, the translation and then in places lack of translation made me wonder if it was deafness as artistic device as opposed to deafness as community audience. And I wondered if you could elucidate some of those choices. And I think I wrote down, who is the specific project for, and what was discussed with relationship to the sensory with respect to art and art that depicts war.
It's clear, thank you. Yeah. Well, if you're deaf, you understand the sign language because they are speaking with sign language. Translation for the the subtitles are for you and me, for everyone, and we will have Arabic too. And I said this is still in the post-production. It is a documentary experimental. I wouldn't say even artistic. We're not exploiting these children, no. So this is just give us a window into their world, how they survive frequent military attacks, how they hear, how they sense. Like we're giving them a voice, I would say, to speak. And to have an interpretation with a sign language, it doesn't make sense because this is not a news report. We're not gonna have someone doing a sign language on the side because they are speaking the sign language and they can read, because the center where I visited this year just to work on this film, they write and read and understand the sign language as well. So what's in my mind are those children and their experience, to share it with the wider deaf community across the world and the non-deaf, Arabs and non-Arabs. I hope I answered your question.
Could I ask a short follow-up question? Do you have I didn't know that you were still in post-production. Do you have deaf folks working with you on post-production?
Yes, I do actually. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I do. I am working with the center, Atfaluna Center for Deaf Children. Not just a single person, the interpretation, everything. I am so aware, but why you're asking about this, Mike?
Oh, because I am deaf, and there has been a rise in the last, especially 20 years, I would say, of disability and deafness showing up in artistic projects, often in ways that are not as integrated as much as they possibly could be on the media production side, and not just the artistic subject side. So,
no, I hope you don't misunderstand. It's completely a different approach. It's not even artistic. As I said, it's a documentary based. Just those children who live trauma after trauma. For the past 15 years, they lived through 5 wars. Anyways, thank you anyways for your question and your concern. And there is someone here in the audience, Anna, who wants probably to follow on this.
Yeah, just quickly, I mean, I was very touched by that part of your talk today, because it showed me something I didn't really know. It's interesting and fascinating to think about how the horror of these bombings would be experienced by somebody who might not be aware of it initially because they can't hear in the distance that this is happening, and others have to tell them, and then they actually experience it in a different way by feeling the vibrations. The extent of the horror of the occupation and the bombings by the IDF is, it's enhanced by what you've done in that video. So I just wanted to thank you for that.
Thank you. I mean, it's fascinating, the description of the children. They were able to describe if the rockets hit the ground or if it's above the ground, how they sense the vibration. They describe it. One of them tried to draw it for me, how he feels it. Yeah, it's a whole different form of knowledge that we need to be aware of, for sure. But thank you.
Oh, wow. Okay, I'll skip Zoom and move over here.
Yeah.
Hi, Rehab.
Hi.
Thank you for a really interesting presentation, and it was actually really lovely to see like an overview of the different projects you've developed.
Thank you.
I have one that's more of a comment and one that's a question. So an observation, as you're talking about, especially the last sort of series of photography practices, where particular conventions of disappearing time from representations of Palestinian people are used, and it really brought to mind like Edward Curtis's work and thinking about the North American context, and how, again, strategies of like removing what quote unquote technological sort of means of progress are isolated. And this is like pre-Photoshop, like pre the era of Photoshop.
Sure.
So just thinking about those parallels, my question to you is, overall, all of your projects gesture to not the sort of mainstream framing of Palestinians that are that for non-Palestinians, when they get to know about Palestine or of Palestinians, it's such a deficit-based framework. It's always very much, and I'm thinking about like Eve Tuck's work, it's very much either pathologizing or victimizing. And there's something that you are interjecting through your projects that demonstrate a different orientation of experiencing and understanding Palestinian resistance and strategies of resistance against an ongoing occupation. And I'm wondering, when the main focus is also on the military occupation, how do you explore or talk about the everydayness of people, both in, like on the ground and in diaspora, outside of the lens of military occupation? Is there a way to talk about it?
It's such a tough question because there is no escape, not for a day, from what Israel's military occupation, Israel's apartheid regime are inflicting on the Palestinians. Every day there are news from the home country. There's no escape, there's no room. And it really takes, it's painful to work on these topics. Before I moved to media in my work, photography and video and sound, I used to paint and sit for hours in a studio and just way different experience. It's painful, and to tell you the truth, like we encounter a mighty military power that's using us actually as test subjects for Western military power, not just Israel, because Israel's survival, its creation and survival is conditioned by the Western countries' support. So here, being in Canada, I do encounter Israel's occupation here in Canada. When I had my exhibition in 2014 and I was attacked by Israel's ambassador, accusing me of glorifying terrorism. He's the ambassador of the occupying power, right? And you will find Canadians writing the artist who glorified terrorism without mentioning that actually the ambassador. And the work is not it's about Israel's terror. So how would I glorify Israel's terror? Anyways, there are many topics that we can explore as artists, but it is really difficult. And the exclusion, one of the Palestinian American scholars mentioned how we are excluded even as Palestinians from trauma studies. We fucking shit, we traumatized by experiences since our childhood. And I'm speaking about myself, like how to escape from that? We cannot. And like by focusing on resistance and just avoiding the game of victimization, because we're suffering from the Israeli Zionist of using it. It's sickening because we are their victim and they're using it as they are the victim. So no, we are there. We are not the vanishing race. Neither the indigenous people in Turtle Island are going to vanish. Actually, they're rising up everywhere. And the Palestinians are not going anywhere. They are resilient and they are resisting. One of the projects that is different, which is the plants, the beautiful plants, they're also resisting. So I hope this answers your question.
Should we go to Zoom, or there were other hands here first? Yeah, either.
Here, then we will go to Zoom.
Hi, I don't really have a question. I just wanted to say thank you for sharing your work, and I've seen you tear up a few times, and it's really heartbreaking. And I'm just so sorry you mentioned that when you were targeted by the sniper, that you didn't receive any support from your institution. And no?
Nope.
Did I mishear that?
Nope, nothing. I received
Oh, okay, no, I didn't know.
No, they wouldn't even condemn what happened or defend their student.
Yeah, and that is, absolutely bullshit. And I moved here from Toronto, and I'm familiar. I worked in this very fancy restaurant in Forest Hill. Lots of very rich Jewish people, and of course, not all of them are into apartheid, but there were a lot of conversations, a lot of secret conversations that would go on. And yeah, it's very messy, and having to be in this like nation state that just forces this farce upon you of like caring. But anyway, yeah, I just wanted to say thank you so much, and I'm so sorry.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Hi, Rehab. Thank you
Hi.
so much for this insightful presentation. I really enjoyed, especially the segment on comparing photography between like Western photographers with imperial or other sort of interests with Palestinian photographers. And I'm just kind of thinking within our current context here, there's like pictures being shared everywhere, videos, and there's a lot of technology, whether it's like Photoshop or video manipulation and deep fakes. Earlier last year, we saw even a picture, I think, or a video of Ahad Tamimi, who was like confronting an Israeli soldier, and people were using that and saying, this is what's happening in Ukraine, for example.
I know.
So I'm just curious if you were ever considering, or other artists were considering, of not just protecting, but also not ensuring that these pictures or the archives that you're discovering are not being manipulated to serve a different context. I mean, there's a lot of technology these days that are often being used to authenticate certain pictures, and I'm just wondering if that's something that you ever considered in your work in the future.
Well, the propaganda machine, or the whole settler-colonial machine and its network in Palestine and its network across the Western world is active all the time, but I'm not going to condition my activity with this network for sure. There is manipulation, there is, but we're not going to stop what we're doing. And we're aware of the manipulation of, as I said, while I'm working on these early photographs, a great number of Israeli websites are selling these photographs in auctions, and you see a huge amount of money for these photographs. It's part of the whole machine, the whole settler-colonial enterprise, really. But we won't stop, and I'm sure the next generation and will pursue this. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just read a few comments from the Zoom, if you don't mind, for a second.
Yes, please.
So Sadia thanks you for this brilliant talk and brave presentation. If we can scroll up, I think there was a question I missed earlier about, just one more up, Jax. Thank you. What do you imagine doing with your research on Palestinian photography, Jennifer asks?
Well, as an artist, I might do an installation. I might do a publication. It's not clear yet. This is part of my fellowship here at Concordia University, which I started last September. So I have ahead of me a long time to think how to represent, to continue this project, because I just started a few months ago. So yeah, exhibition, publication. If you have any idea, send me.
I think we also have some hands raised on Zoom, but I'll go to this person here first.
Robin.
Hello, thank you. First of all, thank you so much for your presentation. My name is Khaled, and yeah, I guess the main thing I wanted to ask is, I've tried in the past driving in the West Bank to take pictures or on the side, but they tell me put your camera down at any checkpoint. So seeing that you were able to take some of these shots and over such a long period is yeah, impressive. And I wanted to ask you if, I mean, I have so many questions, but I'll focus. I guess you said when you went to study at the University of Damascus, you were prevented from returning for many years. So I guess, what ended up happening that allowed you to come back? And then after documenting the military checkpoints and all these photographs, do you think you are still able to return to Palestine? And how does, because for me, I wonder in the future, doing any research or work, I have like the West Bank, like Palestinian identity card, Al Hawiyya. So
You have?
Yeah.
Excellent.
So how does that work? Yeah.
Well, when you have the Hawiyya, you're a free person to do whatever you want. However, you are a subject of the Israeli military court, military law. When I got my Hawiyya back from the Israelis, I managed to, because it's unlawful what they did to prevent me 25 years. I managed to take it back, but immediately my status changed into a subject of military court. My daughter was arrested with her friends. She was put in a military court, her friend in a civil court. So yeah, these are the changes, like you can face being shot or killed or imprisoned or whatever. The value of your life is just gone down, and that's how apartheid works in Palestine, Israel.
Thank you so much, and your work is very inspiring, so thank you.
Thank you, Khaled. And it's my son, Khaled, by the way. I love this name. My son, my brother. Ashat al-Asma.
Should we take Robin's question, Robin in Zoom?
Sure.
If you'd like to go ahead and speak or turn on your camera, you're welcome to. Hi there.
Hi, Rehab. Great to see you.
Robin. Good to see you.
I have a question, a couple of questions linked on about some of the books, the archival materials that you've been looking at, researching, and so on. And first is just about access to these. I mean, are you finding them? You're finding them in Palestine or over here? And do you think, are these books to be found in used shops, used bookstores and antiquity bookstores, that we should be looking for them, to collect them so that they're not lost? That's the first question. And the second is, you discussed a little bit about the exotification of Palestinians, the making it, this whole Orientalist framing of Palestine and the Middle East and so on. At the same time, is there not a utility in some of these books? I mean, the context may be rabid, but in preserving some of the historical record of the existence of Palestine historically, because I mean, I think many of us have seen these photographs, maybe not of people so much, which can be caricatures, but not all of them, but they also seem to be the evidence to show that Palestine has been around for so long, and it's in some of these books. So those, what about that aspect of it?
Well, let me start with the last one before I answer the archives. The last one, Palestine exists or existed, at least the record 4,000 years ago, when we, the Canaanites, our ancestors first inhabited that land, after the Canaanite, the Israelite, then for 700 years, the Israelite, the Canaanites for thousands of years, then the Romans, the Byzantines, the Ottomans, the British, and now the Israelis. So Palestine exists, really. We're not going to look through this archive to prove to whom? I mean, it's like you're talking about the Turtle Island, the indigenous people don't exist, and they have to look for Edward Curtis photograph to say, hey, we are here, we existed. No, we exist because the land speaks of our existence, the land, our ties to the land, our ties to the trees, the olive trees in my family's farm, thousands of years old, the olive trees. Thousands. We don't know. We don't know really how old. So that I'm not going to research or spend any time to prove to anyone that Palestine exists, because it exists and the Palestinian existed. They were Jewish first, then some of them converted, some left the country. It's all this mixture historically. It's not my concern at all, Robin. Now, the books, if you remember, I said my brother from Harvard, he gifted me that Henry Bordeaux's book that was in a sale, book sale, the one titled Palestine. You never know. I mean, even why the university gave it away, I am questioning. It's not here at Concordia. I looked for it. It's not. So we might find these in auctions, in sales. And as I said, the Israelis are putting their hands on so much material. You find it in auctions online, being sold for tremendous amounts of money. You don't want that for sure. That's the reality. Museums, academic institutions, state archives all have our material. The time will come, though. I am confident and hopeful when we reclaim all this. I hope, Robin, I answered your question, and I'll see you soon in Ottawa. We can continue the discussion. Yeah.
think we have time for, I mean, I could read another comment, or we have time for another question in the space before we close up. I do want to give the people here some time to kind of mingle for a few minutes before we close the space. So
Exactly, yeah.
I don't want to also tire our guests out, but if anybody else has a burning question here in the space or comment that you wanted to make publicly. Rehab, do you want to answer the last comment there that's in the chat? I can read it out for you if you like.
Sure.
It comes from Rebecca about having seen your work before, being very moved by the tear gas photography today, and thinking of this work, thinking of them, beside or again, Riela Azule's concept of unshowable photographs. Do you see any connections?
Well, I see connection with my previous work, Rebecca. A Night at Home, the video, you can't see anything in it as well. And I think you remember it. It's the conversation mother-child under fire. But why not with Ariella Azoli as well? Yeah, it could work. Thank you, Rebecca.
Great. Okay, folks, I think we're gonna clue up, give you some time to hang out a little. Maybe I'll just make myself visible for the people on Zoom, just a floating voice in the space. So thank you so much, everybody, for braving the elements and coming to join us here today at Fourth Space. Thank you so much for your generosity, your time, and your energy, and coming in earlier, making yourself comfortable as well with our staff here. That we appreciate it. For those of you on Zoom, wherever you may be, thank you so much for your comments, for your applause, and for joining us today, and on YouTube as well. And for folks here, we just remind you that if you wanted to revisit today's presentation, it's already available on Concordia University's Fourth Space YouTube channel. So if you wanted to share it with friends or rewatch Rehab's presentation today. Okay, bye everybody. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for space and everyone.